Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where my guest is Ben Clapper. He's the Executive Director of Louisiana Right to Life. We're going to talk to you about a very difficult subject, and that's abortion. We're also going to talk to you not only about the history of abortion, but also about these Planned Parenthood videos. There's 9 of them, and what they show. And the bottom line is, what they show is that the babies are chopped up and sold for body parts. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Ben Clapper with the Louisiana Right to Life. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where we're going to talk about the law and you, and why it should matter to you what a law is. You know, in America, in our cities, in our states, in our federal governments, they all pass thousands, hundreds of thousands of laws, regulations every single year, and they either directly or indirectly affect you. That's why you need to know what a law is. It's an exercise of power over people, places, and things. So join us on the next Legal Lines, where knowledge is power. Welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. I'm very pleased to have on the show for the very first time Ben Clapper. He's the Executive Director of the Louisiana chapter of Right to Life. Ben, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. You know, this is a huge issue in front of our society right now, and it relates to these Planned Parenthood videos. And it raises this very controversial and very difficult issue of abortion. And so I reached out to you folks because you've been on the front lines of this for decades, and you seem to have not only legal expertise, but practical expertise. So tell us about this.
Well, certainly before 1973, most every state protected the unborn child's right to life. So abortion was illegal. Some states... Illegal.
Not permitted.
Absolutely. Some states in the late 60s began to liberalize their laws, but there was only the state of Washington that went so far as to say that all abortions after 24 weeks could be legal. So before 1973, there was not one state in America that allowed you to have an abortion at all stages. And then it was, of course, on January 22nd, 1973. That's right, the court decision, Roe v. Wade, and its companion, which most people don't know about, Doe v. Bolton, released on the same day, really in one day changed the legal groundwork for today. So whereas on one day, all states, abortion became legal in all 9 months of pregnancy and for virtually any reason.
All right, so our United States Constitution provides every person the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And this whole abortion issue brings into sharp focus the issues of what is life and when does it begin, right?
Sure, absolutely. Well, just these fetal models here, we have a 26-week unborn child right here. So in all but 13 states in the United States, a baby at 26 weeks, obviously well-defined, well-formed, can be aborted up until birth. You're right. The partial birth abortion procedure is illegal in the United States, but other procedures can be done up until the moment before birth to bring about the demise and to kill the unborn child. Now, in 13 states, there's been a law passed called the Unborn Child Pain Protection Act that protects the baby when they can feel pain, which is at 20 weeks. So this baby, both of these babies right here are 16 weeks. So in Louisiana, for example, this baby can be aborted, but babies like this cannot be aborted because the line is at 20 weeks in Louisiana. That has not been successfully challenged by the abortion movement in our country.
In fact, you know, I'm thinking about right now, our society spends hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars trying to save the lives of premature babies, which are babies born before, sometimes months before they were actually due to be born. And this whole issue of what is life and when does it begin, it's huge ramifications for society. So how exactly has our society answered those two questions?
And you can't go in and amend the next legislative session a decision of the court. It's not as easy as the legislative process. So that really took that out of the people's hands, and really the abortion industry, which now makes profit off of selling abortion in the thousands and the millions in the United States.
1.2 million abortions
every year. That's right. Every year, which fortunately, while it sounds strange, that's on an all-time low, because in the 80s we were much higher, about 1.6 million. So we've decreased some. In Louisiana, we're at a low of where we used to be in 1990, but that's still a lot of abortions happening, and people don't even know it.
And so, Ben, prior to the Supreme Court rendering its decision in 1973, every single state had rendered decisions, written laws that made abortion illegal. And then in 1973, the United Supreme Court, with 9 men, I believe, rendered a decision that rendered invalid all of the other states, all 50 states' laws on the issue. Explain that.
That's right. So on January 21st in Louisiana, abortion was illegal. January 23rd, abortion was backwards. January 21st, abortion was illegal in Louisiana. January 23rd, it was legal in all 9 months of pregnancy. And that's one of the myths about Roe v. Wade. People say, oh, well, it only legalized abortion in the first 3 months of pregnancy. Well, no, the way it was written, and it was actually allowed abortion on all 9 months of pregnancy. And remember, it's a judicial decision. It's not a legislative decision that gives you clear, bright lines about where you can and can't go. It really opened a Pandora's box, and the abortion industry and groups like Planned Parenthood really took advantage of that.
So 40 million abortions because of what the Supreme Court did. And they said abortion is now legal. And so as I understand the history of this, the state courts and even federal courts and legislatures have attempted to regulate the abortion process, when it can happen and such. Correct?
So the question has been since 1973, what can a state do? Can they ban abortion? Can a state say you can do abortions here and not there? Can you give women information about the abortion procedure before they have the abortion? What can a state do? And that's been a lot of the court decisions. So for example, in 1991, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, the court was deciding, well, can a spouse have consent on abortion? And they said, no, the spouse cannot consent to abortion.
Woman's right to choose.
Absolutely, but we know it's very sad in our society that studies show that 64% of women that have abortions feel pressured by men to have the abortion. So a lot of times, unfortunately, men are playing the role of pushing or even coercing that woman to have an abortion. So whereas it might have been pro-choice, really the woman feels like it's her only choice in the matter.
And so as I understand it, the courts have tried to regulate the process, and sometimes based on the developmental stage of the baby. But when it's all said and done, the court created this huge loophole of the health of the mother. Explain that.
Sure. Well, and Doe v. Bolton in 1973 basically said that if a woman, they can have an abortion when it comes to the health of the mother. Well, of course, health was defined as emotional health, psychological health, financial health, and that was what we would call the life of the mother and not the health of the mother. There's two different things. There's a distinction between those two things, and it's important, especially in a legislative realm, to define those clearly.
And Ben, you know, you're using two models of a Caucasian baby, white baby, and a black baby, but when we hit the real world, unfortunately, the black abortion rate is significantly higher than the Caucasian rate. Why? What's going on?
Well, you know, 1 in 5 African-American babies in Louisiana are aborted. So that means for every 4 African-American babies that you would see, another baby has been aborted. And we're so thankful that we have Dr. Kathy Allen on our staff who's working and educating in the black community in Louisiana to reverse these trends and to save these lives.
Okay, we'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke, Meredith Legal Lines. My special guest, Ben Clapper, the Louisiana Right to Life Executive Director. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where we're going to talk about you and the law. You know, a law is nothing but an exercise of power over you, people, places, or things. But where does that power come from? Where does the government get that power? And how is that power exercised? And do you play a role at all? That's what you need to know. So join us on the next Legal Lines, where knowledge is power. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where we're going to talk about the law and you and why it should matter to you what a law is. You know, in America, in our cities, in our states, in our federal governments, they all pass thousands, hundreds of thousands of laws, regulations every single year, and they either directly or indirectly affect you. That's why you need to know what a law is. It's an exercise of power over people, places, and things. So join us on the next Legal Lines, where knowledge is power. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. I'm pleased to have on the show for the first time Ben Clapper. He's the Executive Director of Louisiana Right to Life. Ben, we were just kind of talking about the history about abortion, one of the most difficult, controversial issues in our American society. you'd kind of given the historical background, and the big issue is what is life and when does it begin? And frankly, I got to tell you, from my own personal experience, I was clueless about this stuff. I mean, I guess I just lived in La La Land, but when I saw those videos that came out on Planned Parenthood, my mind just exploded, and so did my heart, frankly. Tell folks what that was all about, what it is all about.
Well, sure. Well, Planned Parenthood is the nation's largest abortion business. So they're a nonprofit organization, but they sell abortion averaging about $400, $500 for an abortion. And in 2012, they did over 330,000 abortions across our country.
Which is 1/3, I think you said,
right,
of all?
1/3 of all abortions in our nation. So Planned Parenthood is like the Walmart of abortion. They drive out the competition, the mom and pop abortion facilities, you could say, and they drive out the competition, and they are the big brand, lots of money to advertise their brand, because they're doing all these abortions and receiving so much money in from the abortions that they've positioned themselves as the nation's leading abortion business.
And what's so disturbing for me, or even more disturbing for me, is that my federal tax dollars to the tune of what, 528,000, half a billion?
That's right.
Is going to Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, $500 million. Now, Planned Parenthood's going to say, well, that money doesn't go to abortion. It goes to all of their other non-abortion services. But you know, as a businessman, that if you put money in one side of your business, it's going to help your whole business. So money's fungible, and Planned Parenthood has benefited and grown their abortion business on the backs of taxpayers.
Well, and I read that 41% of all of their gross revenues comes from that $500 million that comes from me via my tax dollars.
That's right, and then over 50% of their non-governmental income comes from selling abortion to women across the country.
So that just
it's
done
oftentimes
jail.
a cash business as well. And Planned Parenthood, for every 10 pregnant women that enters a Planned Parenthood facility, 9 of them will have an abortion. Now, Planned Parenthood wants to tell you that only 3% of their services are about abortion, but they're going to put a pregnancy test in there. They're going to inflate all their services so it makes it look smaller. But the key is as you know, every woman can't have an abortion. You have to be pregnant. There has to be a human life within that woman in order to have an abortion. And Planned Parenthood is going to capitalize on those women that are pregnant. Now, this is even before discussing what they do after the abortion,
right.
which is what has
which
been...
is just incredible.
Right, which is where they dissect and sell baby body parts. And of course, Planned Parenthood's going to say, well, it's just fetal tissue. Well, it had to be a valuable life in order to get these valuable parts. And that's the sad thing, that these babies will never have a birthday. They'll never get to enjoy the benefits that we've enjoyed of the United States of America, because they never even had the most basic right, and that's their birthday.
Well, and ladies and gentlemen, let me encourage you to go watch those videos. And yes, some of them are extraordinarily disturbing, but that's because this practice is unbelievably disturbing.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about, we've got the whole spending money, my tax dollars given to these guys for abortions, which is frankly against my faith system and beliefs.
Well, and it's not just about our faith beliefs. We should believe as human beings that other innocent human beings shouldn't be picked apart,
well, that's the other half
sold.
of this equation. Let's talk about what these 9 videos show.
Right. They showed a business that takes the products of abortion, the human lives that are torn apart. That's right. These babies that are torn apart. And they talked a lot about how they manipulated the abortion experience, the abortion procedure, in order to ensure that as many body parts, the most valuable ones, they talked about the liver, they talked about the brain, they talked about a number of the other body parts. That's right, that are very valuable. So they're going to use what they called less crunchy methods to ensure that they bring out what they called an intact specimen. Of course, they're never going to use the word baby because that humanizes the unborn child. So they're going to talk about bringing out these intact specimens so that they can then use those to sell to other hospitals, universities, other businesses that are doing scientific research, quote unquote, in order to make money off of these poor babies.
And there's a lot of qualified legal analysts who are indicating, based on the visual evidence and the statements made by individuals in those videos, that federal law has been violated. Because one, that you said that they're doing tests to decide where the baby is, and they're doing tests to minimize the damage to the parts, and they're twisting the baby around or manipulating the baby. They're not getting full consent from the mother. and then they are haggling with folks over the price of the baby parts.
That's right. Well, and you know, when it comes to abortion, they have an upper hand on their clients. These women don't want to go find an attorney and say that they were done wrong by the abortion facility, because these women don't want people to know that they've had an abortion. So this is a silent group of people that are, in a sense, the victims of an abortion industry.
Victims.
That's
The
right.
women are victims just like the babies, as
Absolutely.
far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. And then the other question, are they bringing out full intact specimens? That's against the partial birth abortion law. There's a lot of reasons why DAs, congressmen, the attorney general, they all need to get involved to determine if are they violating law? Have they been violating laws for decades by this? And are they selling these body parts for profits? That would be against the law as well.
Well, and it's interesting, today, as I understand it, according to you, they've actually said, okay, we're not going to be seeking money anymore for the baby hand or the baby eyeball or the brain or the heart or the spine or the liver.
And they say now they're just going to be doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They're going to be giving these body parts to other organizations. Because again, if you've already in your mind said it's okay to destroy a human life, then it's not that big of a deal to go the next step and to give these body parts away or sell them. So Planned Parenthood's backing off their selling of the body parts really shows me that they knew something was wrong, and now they're trying to cover themselves.
Well,
by
and some of the
backing off.
videos actually, you can see them squirming around certain issues, but they take the position that they're not selling the body parts, they're recouping their expenses associated with the procedure, and therefore it's not illegal.
Right, and I guess it's all in the eye of the beholder, the way they're defining what a reasonable expense is. But certainly these videos do show them maneuvering for different amounts of money, and it seems like that.
Arbitrary.
That's right. And I think it's definitely worth us investigating to determine if they've been breaking the law.
And in fact, Congress is investigating. Certain committees of Congress, I believe in the House and Senate, are investigating it.
Absolutely. They're investigating it. Congress is looking into it. The sad thing is that the Attorney General under President Obama is not looking into it, and has been more looking into the Center for Medical Progress, which is the group that made the videos, rather than looking into Planned Parenthood. So we have a split in Washington, D.C., and I think because we have that split, it's going to make it almost impossible to ensure that any truth comes out, any facts come out, and any prosecutions would come out of it.
I know you're a nonpartisan group, but the bottom line is the Senate was contemplating, along with the House, withdrawing funding to Planned Parenthood until these issues were resolved. The Democrats voted against it, and President Obama said he was going to veto if it passed anyways, so that's kind of gone away. So let's talk about the fact that every state apparently, or a lot of them, have these contracts because of Medicaid arrangement with Planned Parenthood to use Planned Parenthood to provide health services to folks in Louisiana and all around the nation. Explain that whole arrangement.
Sure. Well, Planned Parenthood does other things other than abortion, though that's their money maker, that's their business. They do other things, especially contraceptive services, things like that. Go ahead.
All right, well, we'll continue this on the last segment. This is Locke with Legal Lines. Ben Clapper, Executive Director of Louisiana Right to Life. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where we're going to talk about you and the law. You know, a law is nothing but an exercise of power over you, people, places, or things. But where does that power come from? Where does the government get that power? And how is that power exercised? And do you play a role at all? That's what you need to know. So join us on the next Legal Lines, where knowledge is power. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I have Ben Clapper. He's the Executive Director of Louisiana Right for Life. We're talking about a difficult subject, abortion. Ben, you know, we were talking about how the abortion takes place, and then these facilities, Planned Parenthood in particular, in this sense, is literally chopping up the baby parts and selling them. They say, you know, recouping their expenses, but it's for scientific research. Explain that.
Sure. Well, they're going to send it to universities, hospitals, other places that are supposedly doing these research, and more it's coming out that the research is ineffective in the first place. So it's not even that we question whether Planned Parenthood should even be giving these or selling, however you want to put it, because the research that's being done to somehow find these groundbreaking cures are not effective. There are ethical means of getting adult stem cells that are that are effective in actually creating cures and treatments for diseases.
Well, and I think our U.S. Senator, I just read it, and you pointed
right.
it out to me, Bill Cassidy, our United States Senator for Louisiana, just wrote an article in the Washington Times, and, and he's saying, look, you know, they argue that it's to be used for some kind of therapy or treatment or to deal with disease and injury, for vaccines and all this, and he methodically goes through and dispels all of that and points out all of that stuff has not worked as it was thought, for the very reason you pointed out. For some reason it doesn't work, but the adult stem cells or these unique cell lines are much more effective.
That's right, and that they come from readily accessible sources: placenta, umbilical cord, stem cell, also from fat cells. Yeah, fat cells, which Louisiana has plenty of to access adult stem cells through those means. So it's a commodification of human life. That's what we're talking about here, that people are using human lives in a way to expose and research on them to bring about some sort of greater good that's not even happening. The whole system in this has fallen apart. We need to stop it.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit, because Planned Parenthood has put a big old fat target on Louisiana, and in particular, the city of New Orleans.
Sure.
Tell me about that.
Planned Parenthood over the past 10 years has really been pushing to expand the number of abortions. They're already doing 1/3 of abortions in the country, but they see in places like New Orleans that they have an ability to take hold of an additional part of an abortion market. They've never done abortions in New Orleans, if you can believe it. And so they believe, for example, in New Orleans and in Baton Rouge, that they can expand, build a larger facility, begin doing abortions, and sell more abortions. In their own documents, they've said that they want to do 2,844 more abortions in New Orleans at the facility they're building right now.
Every year.
Every year, that's
Every
right.
single
and that's
year.
over and above the abortions that have already been done by other facilities in New Orleans.
And they're willing to invest, I think I read, over $4 million, 7,000 square foot building for a regional headquarters in little old New Orleans.
And you can think about it, if you times those 2,844 abortions by $400, you're talking about over $1 million in abortion income every year for that abortion facility. You expand that by years and years and years, that's a cash cow for Planned Parenthood in New Orleans. They believe they've said they want to expand in Baton Rouge as well. I think Shreveport would be next after that. So Planned Parenthood is looking to do that. Fortunately, Governor Jindal and our legislature have done as best they can to make things difficult to slow down their abortion expansion. One of the ways they've done that is by to try to keep Medicaid money that comes into the state, and then it's matched on a small level by the state government, from keeping that money from going to Planned Parenthood for the other services that they offer. We believe, in agreement with Governor Jindal, that if someone's doing abortions or maintaining facilities that's doing abortions, tax money should be separate. We should have a firewall between tax dollars and abortion.
Make sure it's impossible.
That's right. If you're
for a group who says that they're not doing abortions with that money, can't, because they don't actually do abortions.
Sure. If they want tomorrow to come out and say, hey, look, we're not going to do abortions, well, keep the tax money going to their cancer screens or whatever else they're doing.
Well, I wouldn't even agree to that, given these videos and the apparent violations of the law. But let's talk about it, because Governor Jindal took pretty significant action in the sense that he canceled the contract with Planned Parenthood, and then they end up filing suit on the, well, first of all, the federal government sent a letter down from the Attorney General saying, we think you're violating federal law.
That's right. And, President Obama is going to do everything he can to make sure that Planned Parenthood is not hurt and their operations are not slowed down. And so this is Medicaid federal dollars that is somewhat under President Obama's governance, and so he's going to make sure that that money can flow to a business doing abortion. That's just the nature of his position on abortion. Governor Jindal says this money's being spent in our state. We don't want to go into abortion businesses. Governor Jindal should have that right to make sure that that money doesn't go to, and now we're going to be in court coming up just this week for another stage in this face-off between Planned Parenthood, the Obama administration, and Governor Jindal in the state of Louisiana.
Well, let's talk about that act.
Sure.
There's a particular act. Explain it to the folks.
Sure. Well, we've got a number of things. Yeah, one law that's coming right now that's been passed in 2014 in Louisiana, which says that an abortionist should have admitting privileges at a local hospital. Seems common sense to us, right? If a woman is hurt, she should have that abortionist that can make a connection to her to a local hospital and be able to provide services, give help to that woman.
Because most folks don't understand, just because your doctor is your doctor, that doesn't mean that he gets to perform any type of care for you or surgery at a hospital unless that hospital has given him privileges.
That's right. So, but in almost all outpatient surgical operations other than abortion, those physicians are required to have admitting privileges at a local hospital. It's just common sense.
Right,
It's
because
good
it's a
standard of
dangerous
care.
procedure.
That's
Women
right.
have died or been maimed from this.
That's right. So we need to make sure, so even that, which seems common sense, where now it's that law is hanging in the balance in a federal court in Baton Rouge, and we expect a decision any day from that judge here in Baton Rouge about what decision he'll make.
I understand it also, it clarified that whether it was a surgical procedure or the pill, it required you to get consent.
That's right.
And also there was this waiting period of 24 hours before the procedure, or 48 hours
Yeah, well,
before the
we've had a
procedure.
24-hour waiting period. Now, we've had that since 1994. That's so that if a woman, she has to go to a first appointment with the abortion facility, and then she has to wait at least 24 hours after that to have the abortion, which allows for her time to review the materials that the state gives her, to consider the gravity of the decision she's making, and hopefully for her to choose life, choose adoption, choose parenting, however she is. And the state has many resources to be able to help that woman
Right.
after she gives birth, to raise that child or even to place that child for adoption.
And of course, that's the big goal here, is that the baby is born and is provided for via other options, adoption, foster care, whatever is necessary to keep that baby alive.
That's right. And the state has committed funds in order to help the mother before, during, and after birth.
And this law that is currently in front of Judge DeGravel's, this is actually a law that was modeled, as I understand it, after a Texas law passed in 2013 that the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal at the federal level has indicated has a likelihood of success.
Well,
it's going to win.
Yeah,
it's going to be held.
That's right. So we have a
valid.
very good chance, no matter what this district court judge says, about getting a favorable decision at the Fifth Circuit once it moves beyond the district court. But this is still an important decision, and we hope that Judge DeGravel make the right decision.
Well, I know he's a great judge. What are the future plans?
Sure. Well, we got to continue making sure that we can educate the American people. You know, even with these 9 videos coming out, some of the public still doesn't see Planned Parenthood as the abortion business that it is. We need people to be committed to making sure they're talking about it. People like you who weren't involved before, seeing these videos and saying there's something wrong here, not just with what they're doing on these videos, but the fact that they have these baby parts, and they got those through abortion. So
Ben,
we need people to speak up.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it very
Pleasure.
much. Thanks for being on the show. This is Locke, Meredith with Legal Lines. My guest, Ben Clapper, Executive Director of the Louisiana Right to Life. Thank you for being with us.